In the south of modern Zimbabwe stand the ruins of a stone city so large, so precisely built, that when Europeans first saw it, they refused to believe Africans could have made it. So they invented other builders, Phoenicians, the Queen of Sheba, a lost white race. And when archaeologists proved them wrong, the colonial government did something remarkable. It leaned on the science, pressured the experts, and tried to bury the answer. This is the story of the city, and of the cover-up built around it. This city, known as Great Zimbabwe, is the largest ancient stone-built complex south of the Sahara. The name itself comes from the Shona phrase Zimba Zimbabwe, meaning houses of stone. While visitors often focus on the massive walls of the monumental core, the true settlement actually spread across roughly 7 square kilometers. Between the 11th and 15th centuries, this was not an isolated ruin, but the thriving capital of a powerful state. Scholars estimate that at its peak, the city supported 10,000 to 20,000 people. This was a highly organized society. The ancestors of the Shona people built this urban center on a foundation of farming, cattle herding, and metalworking. They shaped the surrounding valleys into a bustling medieval metropolis, sustaining a regional trade network that connected the African interior with coastal merchants. The physical evidence of this civilization is etched directly into the hills. Built entirely using dry stone walling, massive granite blocks fit together precisely without a single drop of mortar. At the center stands the Great Enclosure, the largest ancient dry stone structure in sub-Saharan Africa. Its imposing outer walls rise up to 11 meters high and span 5 meters thick, containing an estimated 1 million granite blocks. Inside this perimeter sits the conical tower, a solid stone structure standing 10 meters tall, whose exact civic or religious purpose remains an unresolved mystery. Overlooking the valley is the hill complex, the oldest part of the site and its likely royal and ritual center. The carefully shaped courses, sweeping curved walls, and decorative patterns reveal more than aesthetic design. They represent generations of coordinated quarrying, transport, and skilled masonry, directed over decades by elite patronage. Great Zimbabwe's authority stretched far past its stone walls, controlling the trade routes that funneled gold and ivory from the interior plateau down to Swahili coastal ports like Sofala. From these marine gateways, African riches flowed across the Indian Ocean to Arabia, India, and China. In return, luxury goods traveled inland. Archaeologists have excavated fragments of blue and white Chinese porcelain, glazed Persian ceramics, and thousands of glass beads. These imports do not suggest direct voyages across the sea by the inland builders, but they prove Great Zimbabwe was a major node in a global medieval economy centuries before European contact. Among the local treasures recovered are the carved soapstone Zimbabwe birds. Treated as sacred archaeological objects, these figures are closely associated with ancestral and political authority. This lucrative trade generated the immense wealth that supported elite power, funding decades of monumental stone construction. In 1971, German geologist Karl Mauch reached the stone ruins. Unable to accept that Africans built these massive structures, Mauch claimed the site was the biblical land of Ophir, declaring it the home of the Queen of Sheba. Other writers quickly expanded the myth, attributing the walls to Phoenician or Mediterranean builders. These claims ignored local Shona oral history. Instead, they served a colonial worldview that treated Africans as incapable of complex achievements, justifying imperial conquest. This myth of foreign origin soon led to physical destruction. In 1895, the British South Africa Company granted a mining concession to the Ancient Ruins Company. Directed by prospectors W. G. Neal and Richard Hall, the enterprise ransacked the site for gold. By 1900, they extracted more than 2,000 ounces of gold, melting down priceless artifacts. In their search, they tore down walls, dug through burials, and cleared away up to 4 meters of stratified soil layers. This destruction permanently erased the context scientists needed to understand the city's true history. In 1905, professional archaeology arrived to rescue the site's history. British archaeologist David Randall McIver began the first systematic scientific excavations. By analyzing undisturbed areas, he uncovered local pottery, iron tools, and animal remains. In 1906, McIver announced his conclusion. The stone city was medieval in date and entirely African in origin. 23 years later, Gertrude Caton Thompson arrived to test this finding. During her 1929 excavation, she used strict stratigraphic methods, digging through undisturbed soil layers to map building phases and ceramic sequences. Her results were definitive. The physical evidence matched the ancestral traditions of the Shona people, with zero trace of foreign builders. These independent lines of physical evidence, from soil strata to pottery styles and local metalworking, converged. By the early 20th century, the scientific question of who built Great Zimbabwe was effectively closed. The science was certain, and the findings were secure. Any continuing denial of African authorship was no longer a legitimate scientific disagreement. It was a political decision driven by colonial interests. During the unilateral Declaration of Independence from 1965 to 1979, the white minority government of Rhodesia weaponized this denial. Accepting that black Africans built Great Zimbabwe threatened the core ideology of white minority rule, which depended on the myth of an empty or primitive land. To protect this racist political order, the state controlled the public narrative. Under the National Museums and Monuments Act of 1972, the regime censored school textbooks, edited museum displays, and rewrote official guidebooks to present the ruins as an unresolved mystery, often hinting at foreign builders. Scholars who defended the science faced severe state pressure. When archaeologist Peter Garlake published research proving indigenous Shona authorship, the government forced him out of his post, driving him into exile. This was not a hidden ancient conspiracy, but a modern state apparatus actively suppressing established archaeology. Officials did not physically dismantle the stone walls, but they systematically erased the identity of the builders from public consciousness. By controlling the heritage apparatus, the regime ensured that generations of students and tourists were fed state-sponsored doubt instead of scientific fact. In 1980, minority rule ended, and the newly independent nation renamed itself Zimbabwe after the ancient stone city. The stylized soapstone bird, revered by the Shona as a link to ancestral spirits, became the central emblem on the national flag, coat of arms, and currency. In 1988, UNESCO inscribed Great Zimbabwe as a World Heritage Site, formally recognizing its African origin. Decades of displacement culminated in 2024, when an original carved bird was repatriated to its homeland after 137 years abroad. This state symbolism did not establish the archaeological facts. It simply aligned national identity with a scientific truth that colonial powers had spent a century trying to hide. While the identity of the builders is settled, genuine mysteries remain. The exact function of the conical tower is still an open research question. Scholars also debate how the city was governed, weighing models of hereditary monarchy against councils of elites or ritual authorities. The city's decline was gradual, starting in the 15th century and leading to substantial abandonment by the 16th. Environmental strain, resource depletion, and shifting trade routes likely drove the population towards successor states like Mutapa and Rosvi. These unresolved details of daily life and political transition do not reopen the question of authorship. The real questions are about how this medieval metropolis functioned and why it declined. Who built Great Zimbabwe was answered by science a century ago. Were you ever taught the truth about who built Great Zimbabwe? Subscribe for more historical investigations. Great Zimbabwe proves that history is always a battleground for power. When societies manipulate heritage to justify oppression, reclaiming the truth becomes an act of liberation. Today, Those soaring stone walls stand as a silent, undeniable monument to enduring African achievement.